Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time of day that you happen to be watching this. We are here today to introduce you to me, to my firm, and to the beginnings of our podcast. It's only human nature. Let's boil it down. We are hoping that we can start with introducing you to family law and many of the issues that people run into, whether it's divorce or other types of issues relating to the family law field. We are hoping that we can then transition to all kinds of other types of topics that may be of interest to the audience. Our area of expertise, obviously, is in the area of family law. And there are just so many misconceptions, so many myths, so many ideas out there that we run into every day when clients come in to see us that just aren't true. And they're just, I don't know where people get them, probably Googling, but they are not accurate. So we want to give you some background that you'll be able to rely on in any area that you might run into that we have a specialized knowledge of. I'm Janet Boyle. I'm the principal and founder of Family Law Solutions, which is a law firm primarily in the Chicagoland area. We have offices in Chicago, Arlington Heights, and Highland Park at the present time. We have 8 attorneys and approximately 8 staff, which is more than sufficient to handle just about any type of family law matter that's out there. I started my career as a Cook County public defender. I tried murder cases. I tried capital cases, death penalty cases. I tried rapes. I tried all kinds of different types of criminal cases for a number of years before I transitioned to family law. That gave me the ability to know my way around a courtroom at a very, very young age. I also have a master's in LLM in taxation, which is a master's in tax, which allows me to understand so many of the financial issues that you will all face when you're going through a divorce or other family law matter. I don't claim to be the expert. We have those on speed dial, and we'll talk a little bit more about them in a minute. I do have that ability to understand what the experts are saying, to understand what your business is about, to understand the complexities of tax returns, pensions, other types of assets and liabilities that you will run into if you're going through a divorce or any other kind of a family law matter. My firm, has people who are as good or better than me in these areas. And also we have members of our firm who are guardians ad litem. So they're very, very familiar with any parenting issues that you may arise. As this podcast goes on, what we're hoping to do is to bring in various guests who will help you understand some of these complexities, whether that's accountants, whether it's estate planners, whether it's mental health professionals, whether it's guardian ad litems. We intend to, forensic accounting is a big one that we always have to deal with, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second too. Those are the types of things that we're going to talk about, the type of guests that we will bring in. We may bring in some fun guests, how do you move out of your house? How do you settle up the personal property? How much is that couch really worth? I don't know. We're not totally sure exactly where this is going to go, but we intend to make it fun and entertaining for you. That's our goal. We will tell you stories about cases and clients in situations that either we have seen or that we actually represented the people. Of course, we'll change the names. We'll change some of the specific facts so that the people are not identifiable. But I've been doing this for a very long time, and several of my partners have also been practicing for a very long time. The fun part about family law and the fun part about this podcast is, despite how long I've been doing this, I'm always shocked when something new walks into my office. And it's an ever-changing landscape, both with the law, with the facts, with the social mores that we've seen. All of that is so different. And we understand that we need to change with the times and to really help the individual with whatever issue it is. I was talking to a couple of my colleagues yesterday, and I said, in a way, what we are is we're voyeurs into human nature. And that's kind of where the name of this podcast came from, is we see the best and the worst of people when they're going through one of the most traumatic, times of their life. Um, the divorce is up there with the death of a spouse and moving and a couple of other types of life experiences that are extremely hard to recover from, and that go through the different stages of grief when you're going through this, and all of these are things that we can explain to you and try to cover. We're gonna spend a lot of time on the financial type of issues that people run into, and, those are always so important to everyone, whether you're on the receiving end or the paying end of support, of property, of all of those types of things. Who's gonna pay those debts? I mean, all of the type what are things worth? What's the value of my business? What's the value of my stock portfolio? How much of it is mine, my non-marital? How much of it do I need to divide with my spouse? All of these are topics that are important and that we will discuss. Parenting is always a big one, but let's not forget, in addition to the divorce, and there's a saying that I've heard many times, marriage starts with a diamond and two hearts, and by the end, you want a club and a spade. We're going to try to explain to you why you really don't want to use that club and spade. Okay. But if the other side, if your spouse is using that club and spade, we know how to emotionally, legally, and financially extricate you or help you through that type of a situation. Um, People come to us all the time claiming that their spouse or them have mental health issues. We're very familiar with all the mental health issues that people go through. What we hear so much these days is narcissism and borderline personality disorder. While these are a little bit rarer than people would want to think, they are very, very, very significant and serious when a person with that type of mental health issue is going through a divorce, because those types of mental health issues preclude people from being able to be reasonable. One of the things we're going to talk about also, and you'll hear this a lot, is where people deal with their emotions versus their reason. And we understand that, we get that, we deal with it all the time, but you're going to hear why you really need to bring your reasonable side to a divorce or a negotiation with a spouse. We're going to start from the beginning here, and we're going to start with prenups, okay? Because we're going to talk about when you first get engaged, what are the things that you should think about? What are the things that you should do? Do you need a prenup? Is it advisable? Why would you get a prenup? So that's where we're going to start, and then we're going to kind of take it through the whole process. You may find some of our episodes interesting. You may find some that just don't apply to you. But we're going to try to make it, like I said, interesting, entertaining, and fun for you. We're going to pull back that curtain of what really goes on in the family law courts, because anybody can tell you what the law is. But how do judges apply it? What do they really do? What do lawyers fight about? Why do divorces cost so much? How do you hire a lawyer? These are all things that you really, really, really need to think about. And when you go to see a lawyer for the first time on a family law matter, you're usually given a 30 to 60-minute consultation. If you have a complicated matter, you own businesses, you've inherited property, you have a prenup, there's custody issues, whatever it may be, 30 to 60 minutes is not enough to get into all of the specifics and all of the details. So how do you hire that lawyer? Because they're dressed nice? Because they promised you something? Because they got fancy offices? What is the determining factor? I hear so often, well, they have a lower retainer. Well, a lower retainer doesn't necessarily mean a lower price. It just means less upfront. So there's all these considerations, and you need to have an education before you walk into that lawyer's office. Yes, are we hoping you walk into our office? Of course we are. But, that's not why we're doing this. I've been doing this a long time. It's time for me to give something back. And part of what I really hope to give back is education and empowerment to people, both my clients and the people who are listening to this podcast, because those are the two things that you need to walk out of in a divorce, is the education as to what you're entitled to, what you what you should get, what you're willing to take, and why, and what your future is going to look like after those decisions. And then empowerment to move on from this loss. Because let's be honest, nobody walks down the aisle getting married saying, someday I'm going to get divorced. Everybody thinks the marriage will last forever. And when it doesn't, you need to be prepared and have that empowerment to know that there is a second chance. Is this the ending or is this the beginning? I like to believe that when a divorce is final or when a family law matter is finalized, in many, many, many cases, it's really a new beginning. There's a lot of topics, like I said, that we will cover. Domestic violence is not just in poor families. The division of marital assets, the allocation of non-marital assets. We're going to cover a lot of things. But today, what I'd like to do is introduce you to the person who is my guest for today. And that is one of my partners, Bob Kipnis, who is one of the best family law attorneys that I know. And Bob is here to talk to you about why we're doing this, what you should think about, and then we'll move on to our first episode, which is going to be on prenuptial agreements. So, Bob.
Thank you, Janet. For me, it's still morning, so good morning, everyone. When you were speaking, it was conjuring up ideas and thoughts in my mind, and one of them was trust. When you go out and hire a family law attorney, one of the main things you need is trust, and you need to have that level of comfort with whomever you're interviewing that they'll be honest with you, they'll be forthcoming with you, they'll give you the high-low if that's what you want. And you have that level of comfort where you can say anything you want to them. You know it'll be confidential, and you know they'll use it appropriately.
What's a high-low?
Where, say there's an issue with some proceeds from the sale of the house, and there's $10,000 unaccounted for. Depending on the fact pattern, maybe you tell your client, if we file this motion, I can get you 8, but the high-low is probably somewhere between 8 and 4. Just throwing out numbers, giving a client a range to set those client expectations, which is key as well. So they know what the range of possibilities are.
So what you're talking about really is giving a client their best case and worst case scenario under a particular fact pattern.
That's it.
And why is that important?
Just, again, to set client expectations.
Is it also important because you don't want a client arguing or fighting over something that may not be worth the money that it costs?
Agreed. And I'm a big advocate of picking my battles. Right. I think that's key in this field.
Yep. One of the things I tell clients all the time is, this the hill you want to die on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you know what your best case scenario is and you know what your worst case scenario is, then you can make a decision about whether that's the fight you want to take on. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. Tell our audience a little bit about you.
So I've been practicing since 1990. I started off in the civil litigation field doing med mal, personal injury, and I dabbled in divorce. I then was in a divorce courtroom, and a titan from the divorce industry saw me yelling at somebody and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I worked there for over 25 years. And then I've been with Family Law Solutions since May of 2024.